A thread by Brian the Great. Tons of disinformation being dumped out there like jet fighters dropping chaff about the Texas lawsuit. Understand this. For the political elite class, this lawsuit must be frivolous. It must be sedition. It must be a stunt because to them, the alternative is unthinkable. They are holding fast to their conclusion Biden is going to be president. We are rid of Trump at last, and dismissing anything that threatens their delicate bubble. This is actually a positive thing that they are in such denial. How much of an effective strategy could the political class mount now that Trump, after careful preparation for weeks, unveiled this Texas lawsuit juggernaut when they are spending all their time mocking it and dismissing it out of hand? It's good to be underestimated. They are not engaging the Texas lawsuit on the merits. Instead, they've spent 3 days putting all their efforts into gaslighting about it. I just read the Pennsylvania Attorney General's motion to dismiss the Texas lawsuit filed with SCOTUS today. Nowhere in it does he address the substance. Even the big legal guns who are supposed to be engaging the Texas lawsuit on the merits are refusing to do it. That's because the argument the Texas case is making is simple and deadly, and the political elites don't have a good answer for it. The Constitution lays out how federal elections are held and who selects the electors for the Electoral College. For many years, Democratic states have incrementally ignored what the Constitution says about how elections for federal office are to be conducted. Finally, this year, these Democratic states went for it and completely ditched the constitutional model for federal elections. You had governors and state courts cutting the legislatures out of the loop as they rewrote federal election laws and deadlines on their own. At the same time, they were doing these changes to federal election procedures and changing the deadlines. The state officials explicitly admitted they were deliberately freezing out their state's legislatures. They weren't coy about it. They came right out and said it. On election night, when it was clear Trump was ahead and going to win in a landslide, 6 states stopped counting simultaneously in an obviously coordinated fashion. Hundreds of thousands of Biden votes were then dumped overnight in statistically improbable fashion. Now, these 6 states argue what they did, stopping their counting and counting past the deadline on election day, were legal because their governors and secretaries of state and state courts said it was legal. Perhaps for a state election, yes, but for an election for federal office? Only state legislatures can make changes to election laws and deadlines involving races for federal offices. The governor can't do that. The Secretary of State can't do that. And the state courts can't do that. That's what the Texas lawsuit is arguing. Texas is arguing the state officials in these 4 states, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, held unconstitutional elections for federal offices. They changed the rules for their federal elections while ignoring their state legislatures so they could keep finding and counting votes until the right person was ahead. And they were pretty damn blatant about what they were doing. What Texas is doing is it is pointing out to the Supreme Court that 4 states conducted federal elections in an unconstitutional manner, and therefore the elections should be voided and a remedy should be imposed by the court. There are several remedies available. And should the court rule to void the unconstitutional federal elections held by these four states, two of them are: one, state legislatures picking the electors; two, order a new election conducted constitutionally. Whatever remedy the court chooses, the gambit by these six states in going for broke and throwing off the constitutional rules on how federal elections are conducted and who chooses electors will have exposed them. For years, Democrats incrementally gamed the federal election system, which is part of our key national infrastructure, which makes this a national security matter. They pushed deadlines for finding counting votes until we now have election week rather than election day. If the court rules, as I expect it will, it is going to set a precedent for all 50 states. The court will make it very clear that elections for federal offices must be conducted in accordance with the Constitution. States do not get to make up their own laws and deadlines. I'll end with this. Clarence Thomas being in a position to slam the White House doors shut in Joe Biden's face is one of the biggest plot twists ever. And I saw this coming weeks ago. The ghost of high-tech lynchings past uncovered DC.